I have been harassed, that's probably a strong word, but strongly encouraged by a lot of viewers to do a specific video on the Kove 800X adventure bike. You might be asking why that bike? Well, in the standard trim on their website, they're claiming that this bike weighs 183 kilograms. They're claiming that's curb weight, so that means with fluids in it, which is absolutely shocking because if they've managed to do that, that really could mean this is the true unicorn sub 200 kilogram middleweight adventure bike that everyone's been screaming for. Let's try and figure out whether this 800X is the real deal or whether this is too good to be true. Start it up. I wanted to cover the specs first to give us a general idea of the bike. We know that it's got the KTM 790 Adventure R motor in it, which means it'll make about 98 horsepower and 80 Newton meters of torque. It also is mated to a 2118 spoke wheel setup. Comes with a 20-litre petrol tank, of which some of it goes under the seat to help with the balance of the bike so it's not too top heavy, and comes in 3 different variants. It has the standard version, the pro version, and the rally version. And all of these bikes can be identified mainly by their suspension differences, although the rally is very different to the other two in a few ways. So the standard model, you're getting KYB suspension with 210 millimeters of travel, and it comes in at a claimed 183 kilograms wet. Then you can move up to the Pro. This brings you to 240 millimeters of travel, still on KYB suspension, and with the added extras and accessories you get on this bike, it bumps you up to 185 kilograms of wet weight. And lastly, we come to the Rally. This is the most hardcore dirt version of the bunch. Obviously with that Rally name, they're really trying to indicate that. And it has 270 mil of travel up front and 250 mil of travel out the back. It also has a 19-litre tank instead of the 20 litres of the other two, and they also do away with one of the discs up front. Presumably, this is to save a little bit of weight. And while we're at the specs, let's talk about the aesthetics, because this actually looks pretty decent. It certainly isn't a beautiful motorcycle, but as far as Chinese motorcycles go and their past history of making absolutely ugly bikes that look very, very awkward and strange, they really are starting to get quite good. And this 800X looks like it belongs in the adventure bike market. And on top of that, if you love the sticker kits that you're seeing in these images, this is by a long-term friend of the channel, Rubber Dust. They make some absolutely brilliant sticker kits. He hasn't paid me to say that. I just love his work and show the pictures wherever I can because they're great visuals and I really love the designs he has. And if you like these designs, you can head over to his channel through the link I provided in the description and vote on your favorite. Now, the interesting thing here is on the Kove website, they've decided to list the Rally as a dry weight. So they've listed 165 kilograms, which is really, really light. But it's frustrating that they haven't been able to give us a curb weight of this bike so that we can compare it to the standard and the pro model. This would give us a much better idea. And this really is a niggling issue for me because this is the beginning of the inconsistencies that we're going to see. Really, they should be listing the same weight for all 3 motorcycles, in my opinion. If you don't give clear stats on your bike, then it's going to create confusion down the line. Getting the correct and confirmed and legitimate information on these motorcycles is far more of a task than it should be. So little things like this do make me concerned that they don't have a consistency even on their main website. Forgetting that, they're still impressive weights, and with those weights we've got to compare it to other motorcycles. Like I said, the 790 Adventure R with fuel in it is 20 kilos roughly heavier than this 800X in the base model. And even the mighty Tenere 700, probably the king of the middleweights, is still 205 to 206 kilos with fuel in it. So that leads to the obvious question of how have they done it? How have they achieved that weight with the specifications that we've just gone through, using the KTM engine and being able to beat KTM, this massive operation, at their own game? There's 3 obvious scenarios here. The first one is the simplest, and that's there's a translation problem, it's misinformation, or they're flat out lying. This is definitely a scenario to consider here because getting solid information out of China is a very difficult task. The second and the most unlikely one, I think, here is that there is some amazing new technological feat in how they've constructed the bike, the materials they've used, or they've made some major engineering leap forward that the other manufacturers just haven't caught on to yet. I give this the slimmest chance of the bunch. Of course it's possible, but I don't think there's any one major thing that they've rewritten the book on making motorcycles and been able to save that much weight out of one engineering leap. I think that's a little far-fetched, but still possible. The third one, and the one I give the most credence to, is that they've been able to save the weight from shaving little bits of weight here and there on all the componentry that maybe other manufacturers have just overlooked. They're big, slow, heavy companies that have got to go through layers and layers of marketing and legal engineering, all of this crap that really slows a company down. Whereas Kove are quite small in comparison, so they're a lot more nimble. They can respond to market demands, they can make changes quickly, and they can really have a more focused team. So I think the likely scenario here is they've been able to shave a few grams here and there on an awful lot of components that other manufacturers don't bother doing. Now the question here is, would that add up to the weight savings that they have over the 790 Adventure? It would have to be an awful lot of components that they would try and save weight here and there, but it is technically possible. But the secondary question that comes from that is, if you're saving all this weight, where are you saving the weight? Which components are you choosing to trim down? If they just merely save weight and they haven't made it strong and light, that really can have problems down the line for longevity and reliability. And this is something only time can tell as these motorcycles reach the showroom floor, us the enthusiasts buy the motorcycles and find out for ourselves. So why take the risk on this motorcycle? Well, for one, if that weight figure is true, that is absolutely a game changer for a lot of riders. Not everyone can afford two bikes to split it up, to have one bike for the tight wood sections, the goat trails, or the hard off-road riding, as well as have a road bike and adventure bike to do the long adventure tours. A lot of people want one bike that can be a real Swiss Army knife and do everything. And that middleweight adventure bike is the real sweet spot. And if the bike is roughly 185 kilograms wet, that really has a massive advantage compared to the competition. On top of that, we've also got price. The standard 800X is quoted at roughly 10,000 US dollars. So while not a massive saving, it still is $1,000 cheaper than the 790 Adventure R. But really, as I stated, it's the weight of this bike. That's why people want this motorcycle. It's going to be a hell of a lot easier. 20 kilos is a big difference, especially when you're trying to leverage it off the ground. These are tall motorcycles. It can be quite difficult if you're off camber, stuck in mud, deep sand. 20 kilos could make the difference between you getting out of there in one piece and you having to call in the cavalry. So a lot of people are very excited about this weight if it does end up being true. Then it really could reach unicorn status in the middleweight adventure bike market. But it's not all rainbows and unicorns. There are a few concerns that I want to go through. First up, in May's Adventure News, I covered that Kove's CEO has stepped down in February, and that is a pretty big deal. I walked through a few scenarios. One is that Kove just continue on the same trajectory. They don't really miss the CEO and everything just goes along swimmingly. It's definitely possible. But this particular CEO really was the driving force, the passion and the inspiration for the entire company and its direction. And his stepping down is quite a shock. The other frustrating bit of this is we'll never know why. Of course, because everything is obfuscated coming out of that country. And while this isn't the end of the manufacturer and this isn't a blazing dumpster fire, I would say that this is a little bit of smoke. We should be concerned here. The other one I pointed out earlier in the specifications, how does that weight savings affect the longevity and durability? That one, the jury is out. We'll just have to wait and see, but it is something to think about. And the third thing, of course, is the country that it's built in, China. A very divisive country. You've got some people that are really looking forward to motorcycles out of China because of the value proposition, which is completely legitimate. If you can save money on a motorcycle and you want something brand new, it really is hard to look away from some of the great bikes coming from CF Moto and Kove of late, because bargain wise, they're very hard to beat for the performance they offer. But of course, you've got the ideological and the political side of it. I'm not going to tell you how to shop and what to do with your money. I'm definitely not here to tell you how to navigate the geopolitical landscape. So that is a challenge they're going to have to face. But let's be real here, if this bike is undercutting the 790 Adventure R by $1,000, has the same motor, and let's presume that that weight is true, will be roughly 20 kilos lighter, then really this is a game changer for the industry. Despite all the concerns I have, if they manage to pull this off, this really will be exciting because of the knock-on effects of what Kove are claiming they have achieved. Because if that bike is truly that light, it means that consumers will presumably flock to this motorcycle because it has such a significant advantage over the other manufacturers. So this, I think, will really encourage the other manufacturers and really focus on trimming down these middleweight adventure bikes. If it's one complaint that I see a lot in the comment section is, why can't the manufacturers do a middleweight that's sub 200 kilos? So if Kove pull it off and the people flock to it, you can bet your bottom dollar that other manufacturers will sit up, take notice, and hopefully take action. To love them or hate them, it's going to be an interesting year seeing how this bike turns out, whether the proof is in the pudding. I'd love to know your thoughts. Are you planning to buy one or have already put down your hard-earned money, or are you staying away from this bike and letting the dust settle? Chuck your thoughts down below, and as always, don't forget to stay shiny side up.